My small ownership in Winged Keel is now 470 times what my 100% ownership in the Madison Group was.
You really have pulled this all together and created a great outcome for you, employees, clients, and your daughter.
Sprinkle kindness. Make sure that your competition doesn't preclude friendship, because that might be who you actually end up being partners with.
Welcome to the Business Transition Roadmap. My name is Elizabeth Ledoux, and through my years, I have seen how communities thrive when business succession and transition are done well. Me and my team at the Transition Strategists have been helping business owners develop and implement transition strategies for over 30 years. And on this show, we want to help you by giving you the roadmap to a healthy business transition. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Business Transition Roadmap. I'm Elizabeth Ledoux, and today I am so excited to be joined by Mark Richards. He is a principal with Winged Keel Group, and he's the leader of their Denver office. He and his team, they are so sophisticated, and they focus on life insurance-based solutions for ultra high net worth families, family-owned businesses, and also privately held companies. Mark and I have known each other for quite some time through a couple of different connections, and I've just appreciated him for many, many years. He's got more than 3 decades in this advanced planning world, and nearly 40 years with what was his company called the Madison Group. So today, he's here to talk to us about his experience with the Madison Group, how he built and grew that, and then how he went through a transition that, in my opinion and from my perspective, has been so successful. So today, what I want to do is help us all to gain some wisdom from Mark. So Mark, welcome. And I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, my hope is that I can share something that someone else can use and find valuable.
That's great. Well, thanks. So Mark, why don't we start with you just telling us a little bit about Winged Keel. And then I'd like to, once you do that, we'll go into your journey from the Madison Group over to where you are today.
Oh, thanks, Elizabeth. Winged Keel is unusual in that we are the first national multi-generational life insurance distribution platform that serves the ultra high net worth marketplace. And that description might not have a lot of sizzle to it. So we are the leading distributor of life insurance among every one of the life insurance carriers distributing private placement life insurance. And we are the largest firm within a already elite national distribution platform called M Financial, which is a broker-dealer and distribution firm. And perhaps we're in 17 markets now. And perhaps most importantly, we're just getting started. Over the next 5 years, I would be surprised if our employee count or revenues, every metric hasn't doubled.
That is so exciting. And so let's go back into how did you get started here? So you've got this incredible company that is running well and has some incredible potential in front of it. Let's go back. How did you get here? What's this journey looked like for you?
Well, you were kind in your dating of me, your carbon dating of me. I actually began in 1980 in this field, and had left a position on Wall Street, coming out to Denver to ski. I think I was 25, and at that time, I hired on with a firm that said they were doing financial planning, and it wasn't until later that I learned that that was code for life insurance. And then by that time, I had given up my position in New York. I was committed to living in Colorado, and I said, "Well, I'll give it a try." But I didn't like the idea of life insurance, and so I really focused on the financial planning part. The evidence of that is the 5 or 6 designations I now carry. But I recognized in doing what I was doing over time that while all the planning was valuable, most of what you do in planning is subject to all the real life happenings and ends up being somewhat misguided because you're thinking linear and life happens in a random sequence. So, but what remained as very valuable to our clients was the insurance that we placed. So as time went by, I began to narrow my focus and um, upgrade the market focus to the ultra high net worth, which today we define as 100 million and above. And we have at Winged Keel over 750 centimillionaire clients and over 350 billionaire clients. I just saw recently that there's 3,500 billionaires in the United States, so we have 10% of that market.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. So when you tell me a little bit about the Madison Group and how you started, how that came about. And you did make a transition. So I want our audience to know about that transition, how you got in, how you merged in, what happened with Winged Keel, and also talk a little bit about your family. So let's start with this journey. What were you doing when you started thinking about transitioning?
Yeah, I've had 3 transitions in my career, which really over that period of time is not so many. But the first was moving from the firm I hired on with into my own independent firm, the MJ Richards Company. The second was merging the MJ Richards Company into the Madison Group, and the third was the Madison Group into Winged Keel. So, and actually, there's probably a fourth, which was me becoming the sole owner of the Madison Group. So, when I joined the Madison Group, I was recruited by the founder, and it made sense to me because I was spending a lot of time on the business side instead of the client facing work, and I wanted to focus more of my time on the client facing work. So that was the promise when I joined the Madison Group. In our business, as in many businesses like this, where you have individuals responsible for generating revenue, if you are successful in that job, then you automatically kind of get put into a position of management and ownership over time because of the value you represent to the firm. And that doesn't mean you're good at either management or ownership. It just means that that's what happens. And in my case, I don't think I was particularly good at either one of those. And I don't think I was particularly interested in either one of those. I really wanted to focus on the client work. I had lots of ideas about the business, but I wanted somebody else to execute. So when we got to Winged Keel, that was critical. And now I'm where I want to be. But that took 45 years. So the big issue at the Madison Group was that we had a business model challenge, and we had a founder problem, and then we had a crisis. So the business model challenge was that our business, life insurance, in the traditional side, and I'll differentiate that between the non-traditional side as we go through this. But the traditional side has a compensation model that's been around for a long time, designed by the insurance companies, which is to pay a heaped commission up front and really nothing thereafter. There's some trails on some products, but if you say it's nothing thereafter, you're more accurate in making that comment. So that's the business model challenge, right? Because you have service requirements. If somebody buys an insurance policy from you, they expect to be able to call you up and ask for something to be done and have it done, and they expect you to report on how that policy is performing and inform them if there's a change that's needed, et cetera. And that requires staffing, of course, and it requires training and systems, and so it's difficult when your revenues don't match your liabilities. You have this long tail. It could be 50, 60 years, a lifetime of the insured, with no revenue. And you can't do repeat business with clients if you're not providing service and meeting commitments, and making it a good experience when they acquire the insurance. So you do the servicing, but you have to then generate enough revenue from new policy sales to be able to afford to staff and all of that. So that's the business model challenge. And also part of that business model challenge is, what is the value of a business where all the revenues have to be renewed every year? There's nothing recurring, and you have a big tail of liability on the service side. So I would argue that model has a zero enterprise value or even a negative enterprise value. And so
that's a big challenge.
That's a big challenge. And then there was a founder problem. The founder was a gentleman who was, obviously we're all aging. He had been a very successful agent with a lot of, at the time, innovations that he brought to the Madison Group. The Madison Group was nationally recognized as one of the preeminent providers of life insurance to the ultra high net worth marketplace. But the Madison Group focused really only on the traditional marketplace. So it had all those issues I talked about. And the founder had, as many founders, he had as I used to say, he was our greatest asset and our greatest liability. So personality wise, it was difficult to attract and retain the key people, and his production, his ability to generate revenues, was declining. He was on a pretty steep decline, and so that was causing firm revenues, as mine were growing, to be either static or declining overall, and so this reality was beginning to dawn on everyone but the founder. So it took years before we got into a crisis mode. And the crisis mode was that we were no longer making enough money to pay down our credit line, and the bank turned that credit line into a loan to be amortized. So we had no access to capital, and so at that point, the founder. So there's a saying, it goes something like, never waste a crisis. At that point, the founder wanted, up till then, one of the issues in planning succession, and I was an owner in the business, but he had his focus, his motivation was, the markets, they say, are driven by greed and fear. He was in a greed mode. He felt that the value of the firm was much greater than any financial justification would give it. But now he went from greed mode to fear mode because of the liabilities. And once he went into fear mode, it was much easier to get to a reasonable valuation. And I was actually on my way out at that time. I was creating my own firm. And but that, it accentuated the fear because he knew he couldn't keep the firm afloat without me. And our COO brought that reality to his attention and said, Mark is the firm. He's 95% of the revenue. And, without him, there is no firm. So my attorney, who was helping me set up the new company, said, let's just make a proposal. And I said, well, I don't want to do that because we'll spend a lot of time on it. And at the last minute, he'll change all the terms of the deal, which had been the MO. And, but he said, we're not going to negotiate. We'll just make a proposal. And by this time, he had an attorney, and his attorney was able to point to him and say, look, in order to negotiate, you have to have something to negotiate with. You don't. You either take this or leave it, but I would recommend you take it. And he did. And so we were able to, and it was a fair deal, and it actually turned out to be very profitable for him, but it was based on, it wasn't making any commitments that didn't make sense at the time. It was giving him a participation in the future. but which turned out to be extremely profitable. But um,
Good for him and good for you. It's
yeah,
interesting. Thanks for sharing that story. And then the next thing I want to do is go through your next one, and your daughter's included in that. So I want to make sure that we put in that family piece as well. But isn't it interesting? Because one of the big things that I talk about is trying not to make, if you have a strategy, you work together, you don't get opposed with maybe an employee or a partner, another partner wanting to leave, and that it doesn't become just an event. Because you wandering all the way up to that time, I'm sure there was a lot of struggle and a lot of challenge, even relationally, between the two of you, because you'd probably worked well together in prior times, and all of a sudden now we're not. And pretty tough time.
it wasn't something I want to repeat, but it was all necessary to get to the blue skies we have today.
Yeah.
The I had about a 5 year period of ownership, of sole ownership in the company. And one of the first things I did was to recruit an advisory board. And this was 5 people who agreed to serve on a board basis, although not a formal board. And we called it the Wisdom Council. It was comprised of a retired trust and estate attorney who had been the leading trust and estate attorney in the ultra high net worth marketplace, the previous head of J.P. Morgan Private Bank, and it was also joined by my COO and a woman who was kind of the mover and shaker at our broker dealer and distribution platform, M Financial Group. So she was, probably the most important person there, and she was on the board. And then we had a fifth, which was a client who we had worked with, who represented kind of the perspective of a client, what was important from that perspective. And he was also a very good businessman. He turned out to be an incredibly helpful board member. So those 5, which was a board that worked in a total volunteer basis. So I would say to your listeners, Elizabeth, don't assume that you don't have friends who will, do this just out of the goodness of their heart and because they believe in business and succession and especially with retired folks who, had high powered jobs, many of them just want to have a hand in it. They would just want to, be involved and use some of the experience that they've had. They don't need the money. It was an incredible board, and we met quarterly, and we reported to them quarterly. We gave them full transparency on our financials. We had initiatives that we would report on every quarter. And one quarter, about 3.5 years into this, by this time I had hired Lily. So Lily is my daughter, and Lily still lives in West Hollywood. She went to school at Emerson and graduated with an education based on writing for screenplays and acting. And it turns out, and David Brooks points it out in his book, How to Know a Person, that is actually a very good background for sales. I did not know that at the time. I was looking at it as my daughter is ultimately going to have a problem in her income. And so I wanted to give her an opportunity to have a dual track in her career. And so I asked if she was interested. We had a training program sponsored by M Financial at the time. And so I asked if she wanted to join the training program and learn how to be a CRM or a client relationship manager. She jumped on the chance, which surprised me. I thought she was just so into the entertainment business that she would say, no, this is my passion. I'm going to keep doing this. But she didn't. She said, I would love that. And then she was a star in what they call the Magna Star program. It was, the training program was called Magna Star, and I'm sorry, it was called Magna, and she was a star in that program. They tapped her as one of the people who had the most potential. And then when not to get too out of sync here, but when Winged Keel, when we merged there, they looked at every employee and hired them independently, but they also tapped Lily as someone with a great deal of potential. So anyway, back to the advisory board. About 3.5 years in, the advisory board said, Mark, we appreciate that you're trying to create your succession organically. I had not only Lily, but I had one other CRM who I'd hired, both women. And they said, but we think you're running out of runway, which was a kind way of saying you're getting old. And we want to come back with a plan B. So one of the things when you have a volunteer board and they are providing you great counsel, your responsibility is to do whatever they ask, right? I mean, you're not
absolutely to listen and act. Yeah.
So at the time, it was obvious, everybody in M Financial knew that the most successful firm within M Financial was Winged Keel, headquartered in New York. I had, worked with Winged Keel over the past 20 years. Whenever I had a private placement life insurance policy scenario, I would joint venture with them because they were the experts in that area and they were the pioneers in that area. So we had a few mutual clients and we had experience in working together. And so we had trust and we had knowledge of one another. And also, this turns out the CEO of Winged Keel, at that time managing partner, but now CEO, I had met on M used to do this thing called the sabbatical, a cruise, and we were in Vietnam on a stopover, and Petra had picked out a lunch spot, probably the most expensive restaurant in all of Hanoi. It was a kind of a diplomat setting, very much like Rick's Cafe, and the ceiling fans, and the palms, and the white coated waiters, and very different than everything else in Hanoi. So anyway, I'm having lunch, and the bill comes, and it's like New York City pricing, and I'm like, my gosh! And I look over, see these two young guys who are on the ship, and I didn't know them very well, but I saw that they were dining here, and I thought, my God, there's no way they're going to be able to pay their lunch bill. So I told the waiter I wanted to pick up their tab. So I bought their lunch. They came over and thanked us, and that was just a little sprinkling of kindness. And then 20, 30 years later, that turns into when I call up the CEO, and I said, hey, Eric, I'm going to be back east, and was wondering if you had time for a dinner. And so we had dinner in New York, and I was struggling with how I was going to broach this subject, right? And
sure.
We were just about 20 minutes into dinner, and I said, so you've been really expanding your platform. And he's quite happy about it. He says, yeah, we have Boston, and we have at that time they didn't have Atlanta, but we have Richmond, we have Dallas, we have San Francisco. And I said, yeah. And it just kind of came to me as we were talking. I said, that's why you need something in the middle. And he said, I couldn't agree more. That's what I was hoping dinner would be about. So
isn't that fantastic?
We had an immediate good start. And then we agreed to sign a NDA, and we just kind of proceeded from there, which went without a hiccup into a sale to Winged Keel, where I rolled my equity in Madison Group into Winged Keel. And then it was only 2 years later that Winged Keel successfully attracted a large investment from a prestigious private equity group called GTCR. And they really were interested. They had, in the past, they were a financial technology focused private equity group. And they were interested in finding a way to invest in a pure life insurance play. And especially in the ultra high net worth marketplace, because we've all heard the terminology of a K economy. And that has been, I've always been in that space, but that space seems to be the most attractive space today. And so that put a value on Winged Keel, and also took care of a founder problem that Winged Keel had. So
Nice.
able to accomplish both of those with that investment, and also gave us great insight and ability to have synergistic partnerships that expanded beyond Winged Keel's relationships and connections. So they've been a
That
great
is,
partner. The board meetings with GTCR and the direction they give us has been phenomenal. We doubled our EBITDA in the trailing 12 months following
wow.
that investment. So they're very happy with us. We're the highest. We were the highest. I think we still are the highest performing asset in their portfolio. Although I think we're also the smallest. But the and back to the formula, the challenge of the business model. Winged Keel had solved that 20 years before, and it took that kind of a time frame by pioneering into the private placement life insurance, and that had a different kind of compensation structure. It did not have any commission embedded in the placement of a policy. It had a placement fee that we structured, and it had a asset administration fee. And so, based upon the cash values, the investment growth of the portfolios, and so very much like an AUM model, and
Yeah.
that's recurring revenue, and that has value both for Wall Street, and also it provides the ability for a firm to make investments because we know we have X dollars coming in over the next 12 months. So we've been able to really double down on our infrastructure and all the things that really differentiate us. We have professional management. We were able to think beyond tomorrow and
Mhm.
really focus on the future and where we want to be. And so it's for me, having started in this business so long ago, and over time recognizing what the business challenges were, to be on the side of the fence where we solved those and we're just distancing ourselves from all our competition is very gratifying at this stage of my career. It feels very fortunate.
I'm so excited for you. And just to pull on, you said so many things. I'm just going to try to pull on a few of those. Just the concept of one, understanding your business model, two, navigating, and you have put a lot of thought in, and I've noticed that about you. You always do put a lot of thought into taking care of others, understanding what the risks are, identifying paths forward that make sense. Again, that board, bringing that on, and not just listening, but also acting and valuing outside input. So many entrepreneurial people play the Lone Ranger game. When I see them, sometimes they're just, they're playing the Lone Ranger, and really utilizing the assets and the people and the friends that you have around you to help to navigate a great business and also a great life. In the Transition Strategists, which is our company, the focus for me, and this is just my life focus anyway, is for people to live their best lives. And great decisions help to do that. So you really have pulled this all together and created a great outcome for you, employees, clients, and your daughter as well.
And thank you for saying that, Elizabeth. And I would say, looking back, a lot of it is values based, right? I've been complimented by people from all angles of the business in my differentiation from everybody else they've worked with, in that I've never valued a single transaction. A lot of folks in our business will work on a large transaction, maybe the largest they've ever done, and they will try to maximize the compensation and use that as a way to create financial freedom. I've always made sure that whatever we were doing, it was the client first. And as a result, for instance, in the private placement space, I recognized that I didn't know what I didn't know. And rather than try to keep all the revenue at the Madison Group, from every one of them I ever did, I joint ventured with Winged Keel. And that was because I knew that they had the expertise. I knew that the client would be better served if I brought them in. And I knew that they were willing to come in as a partner on a 50-50 basis. That turned out to be just a client-centered approach that ultimately had a big impact on the ability to create this succession and now have a platform, be part of a platform that is leading the industry into the future.
It's incredible. So, this has been great. The time always goes so fast, and I'm very grateful for you to have shared so much with us today. What things, Mark, as our audience walks through their transitions and they walk through thinking about them, strategizing around them, planning for them, what things would you recommend they keep in mind?
I'm not sure this is a great answer to your question, but I would, certainly say, sprinkle kindness. Make sure that your competition doesn't preclude friendship, because that might be, who you actually end up, being partners with. And I would say that don't focus on having, a large percentage of either a transaction or a business. My small ownership in Winged Keel, and I did this calculation just before our call, Elizabeth, is now 470 times what my 100% ownership in the Madison Group was.
Wow. That's incredible. Wow. That's incredible. Those are incredible numbers. And also great wisdom, because sometimes I think we do get too focused on the dollars and not as focused on the outcome and the people side. I think the people side, the values side, is so important in this. Wow. Congratulations, Mark. I'm so excited for you. Yeah. Living your best life. Well, Mark, thank you so much for being on the show today. I so appreciate you, and know that this wisdom that you have, and also that what you've shared with us, will give people an idea of what a journey can look like and what a successful journey can look like, because we've got one right here. And so many times we hear the ones that don't work. Well, this is a great example of one that was absolutely, you hit it out of the park, Mark. So anyway, thanks again for being here.
Bye, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Transition Roadmap. If you're ready to start shaping your own transition strategy, which I'm really hoping that you are, our team at the Transition Strategists would love to offer you a free discovery strategy session where you can explore what might be good for you and just some new ideas. We've got a new perspective and a new approach with people first. And a lot of what we talk about, nobody has ever really done before. So I want to encourage you to think about that and to go to transitionstrategist.com/discovery to schedule your call if you are even curious. It's free, no pressure. We'd love to talk to you. And by the way, if you're a successor or if you've got one in your business, you'll also want to check out for sure Your Next Gen Friend, A Successor's Guide to Business Transition. It's a podcast that's hosted by my successor, Andrea Carpenter. She's incredible. And this one is specifically designed for rising leaders in family businesses. So thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on the Business Transition Roadmap.